All right, in this lesson, I want to share 3 steps to freeing yourself from speech anxiety and anticipation. Of course, anxiety and anticipation for many people who struggle with stuttering and blocking, this is one of the things that has, you could say, the most detrimental effects. Like you feel it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and all this anxiety, perhaps even days ahead of when you have plans to perhaps meet somebody or go to a job interview, and it keeps playing in your mind, this anxiety and this anticipation. And we need to talk about this because we want to make it as easy as possible for when you are in the situation that you don't have all of that stress and that anxiety and that anticipation just built up so much to where there's hardly any room left to even implement any tools or change your approach, right? At some point, we can't just have tools. We also need to look at, okay, what can I do about the anxiety that I feel and that anticipation that I feel? And that is what I want to walk you through here in this lesson. So 3 steps of the process. Number 1 is you need to understand the danger of avoidance. Understand the danger of avoidance. So John B. Arden, in his book, Rewire Your Brain, just a really good book. In this book, he talks about the 4 types or the 4 common types of avoidance that contribute to anxiety. And these 4 types are escape behavior, avoidant behavior, procrastination, and safety behavior. So what I'm going to do now is give you an example of all 4 of these avoidance behaviors in the context of going to Starbucks. Okay, so this is going to be, I think, this will make it very clear, and I really liked how this sounded, at least when I was writing it. Hopefully it'll turn out that way, and it'll be a memorable way of thinking about these avoidance behaviors. So number 1, escape behavior. So an escape behavior is when you are walking into Starbucks, but then right as you reach for the door handle, you're like, oh no, you panic, and then you go back to your car and you don't go to Starbucks because you don't want to, order, or you're afraid you'll block on your name when they ask for your name, whatever it is. An escape behavior is when you go do something and you're almost there, but then last second you escape, like right as you're reaching for the door handle to walk into Starbucks, or right as you're about to pull into the drive-through, say, you all of a sudden panic and be like, nope, not going to do it after all. That contributes to anxiety, right? That is one of the avoidant behaviors. Another type of avoidance behavior is literally called avoidant behavior. So this is when you never get up to go to Starbucks in the first place. You want to, you wish you would, because you want, a venti salted caramel latte or whatever you get at Starbucks. And the avoidant behavior is simply you just stay at home because you don't want to deal with it. So you just avoid the situation completely. Another type of avoidance behavior is procrastination. So this is when you decide to go to Starbucks. You're like, I'm going to go to Starbucks to get my salted caramel latte or whatever, but you keep putting it off. Like maybe you decided, well, I'm going to go today and it's 9 a.m. And then you're like, oh, I'm scared. And so you just do other things. You can get distracted and you keep pushing it off. Finally, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 in the afternoon. Finally it gets to 6 in the evening. You're like, Starbucks is going to close in an hour or 2. I still want to go. So you go, but the problem is you've been procrastinating all day long, and that has built up and built up. The anxiety, the anticipation, it's built up. And now once you get to the drive-through line, or once you walk into Starbucks, you are going in with a major disadvantage because of all that procrastination buildup of anxiety. So that's another form of avoidance behavior that contributes to anxiety, is procrastination. And finally, the number 4 avoidance behavior is safety behavior. So this one is interesting. This is when you actually go ahead, you go to Starbucks like you want to, but what do? You bring a friend, or you're just with a friend, and instead of ordering what you want, perhaps you let them order first, the person you're with, and then right when they're done ordering, you say, and I want exactly what she got, or I want exactly what he got. Like, just give me the exact same thing. That's also what I want, even though it's probably not what you want. But that is the safety behavior. You still kind of get what you want. You still go to Starbucks, you still order, but you don't actually do it in the way that you want to. And this is another thing that contributes to anxiety. It's safety behavior. So again, escape behavior, avoidant behavior, procrastination, safety behavior. We have to understand the danger of these avoidance behaviors because these contribute to anxiety. They contribute to making things worse. Okay? So now that we understand the danger of avoidance, we need to move on to step 2, which is you need to understand that you cannot fool your amygdala. You can't fool your amygdala. So what's happening in your brain is your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that is associated with fear and emotions. So when you have anxiety about a speaking situation and you feel that anticipation, your amygdala in that situation is running on hot, or it's running on high. It's really churning. It is really lit up. And the only way to break that pattern, to calm yourself down, is by exposing yourself to what you're afraid of. It's classic exposure therapy, which we'll get into in step 3. But you really can't fool your amygdala. Your amygdala is going to do what it wants to do. It is going to feel the fear, or it is going to put those fears into you and those emotions and those anxieties unless you prove to your amygdala that it doesn't need to do that it doesn't need to run on hot, that it doesn't need to run on high. So the way that you prove to your amygdala that it doesn't need to freak out, that it can chill, is by putting yourself in situations, again, that you're afraid of. So now that doesn't mean that you start out with the most stress-inducing situation possible or speaking in front of a huge crowd. No. Start small, but start with things you are afraid of. Start with the small things you're afraid of. Perhaps that's going into Starbucks, just to stay with the example from earlier. But exposure therapy, there's a reason it's become such a popular term in psychology. It's because it works, right? Your amygdala is very smart. You can't fool it. You need to prove to your amygdala that it doesn't need to freak out. You need to prove to your amygdala that it can just chill. So one of the ways that you could actually think about your amygdala is you could think of it like a child. So if you have a child and perhaps he's scared that there are monsters under his bed or monsters in his closet, you could perhaps tell him, like, no, there are no monsters there. Just shut up, go to bed. It's fine. That probably won't work as well as if you turn on the lights, you grab their hand, you open the closet, you shine a little light and say, look, there aren't any monsters there, right? Shine the light under the bed, like, look, no monsters, right? So you give them visual proof. You prove to them that, look, there aren't any monsters here. And you're kind of doing the same thing with your amygdala. And it's all about proving to your amygdala again and again. It's going to take time. It'll take repetitions. You will have setbacks. It's not like, immediately if you do it once, you'll be good for life. No, there are some ups and downs in this. But if you can tip that scales and have the times where you put yourself out there, you expose yourself to what you are afraid of, and you slowly expand that over time, that is how you calm the anxieties and that anticipation that you feel. That's how you do it. You can't fool your amygdala. So that leads us right into step 3, which is use exposure therapy, but start small. And of course, we've already kind of talked about this here in step 2 about exposure therapy. But let me give you a couple examples of exposure therapy for your speech. So one example is you could simply find a setting or an environment that you are even just a little bit afraid of. Again, this could be Starbucks. This could be speaking up in class. This could be speaking up in church. This could be going up and asking that person on a date. This could be actually striking up a conversation with the bartender or the barista, whatever. Anything that kind of makes you feel a little scared, a little anxious. When you feel that anxiety, don't engage in the avoidance behaviors that we talked about earlier. That only makes it worse. Sure, it might feel better in the moment to not have to engage in it, to just stay quiet. But that anxiety, you're reinforcing it, and it's going to only get worse over time. So we don't want to avoid it. Instead, we want to expose ourselves to what we are afraid of. That's what exposure therapy is all about. So one more thing I'll mention here too is that one of the things that can really help you to alleviate some of that anxiety when you feel it, but you know you don't want to avoid it because we've already talked about it, that's not good. When you put yourself out there, you're like, no, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to talk to the barista or the bartender. I'm going to ask them for another water or another beer or another refill, whatever. When you do that, it can be helpful to remind yourself that, hey, I have different ways of saying this. I have tools I can use. I don't have to get stuck on saying something exactly this way. So remind yourself of those tools and maybe narrow it down to one or two when you're in the moment, right? One or two that really you feel like are the best for you and that work the best. And then perhaps focus a little bit more on implementing those into your speech. Maybe stretching out the first couple words so that you don't immediately hit a block, right? Whatever it is. Remember that tools, again, they're there to help you. They are bridges to help you get across the river so you don't drown, right? And so on. So there you go. Step 3 is use exposure therapy, but again, start small. Don't try to overwhelm yourself, but consistently sort of push that up. Always be striving to not avoid the situation when you feel some anxiety, but instead face it head on, because that is how you tame your amygdala, which is exactly what you need to happen. You need your amygdala to chill out, right? But you're not gonna do that by somehow faking your amygdala, or fooling rather your amygdala. You can't fool it. You need to rather prove to your amygdala that the anxieties and the anticipation, that you don't need that anymore, that it can chill. Okay, so there you go. Those are the 3 steps to freeing yourself from speech anxiety and anticipation. If you want to dive deeper into my method, I have a free training. It's my Stop Stuttering workshop. If you truly follow it, you could achieve 90% fluency in as little as 6 weeks. This is an in-depth video training for how to overcome stuttering. It gives you the daily routine, it gives you the plan, it gives you the outline, it gives you that roadmap that you need to get started. And depending on where you're at, this could be everything you need. Sometimes all you need is that little bit of momentum. And this is what my Stop Stuttering workshop does for you. So if you want to achieve 90% fluency in as little as 6 weeks, imagine what that could be like. Imagine what that would feel like. This is your time. So I'll leave a link in the description below. It's 100% free. If you're on YouTube, you'll find it there, or just go to speakyourmindmethod.com and it's all over my website. You can't miss it there.